Welcome back, everybody.
Hello.
Mike Rose joining us on the podcast today.
It's me.
It is. We're going to talk about some baseball.
Baseball. Bay-ball.
So, I don't know if you know this, Mike, but the Nationals won the World Series.
They did.
The Washington Nationals defeated the Houston Astros in 7 games. Shout out to Kata, by the way, who predicted correctly that the Nationals would win the World Series in 7 games. Insert audio here. So, it's kind of ridiculous that they got to this point.
It is. And, me being an Eagles fan, we love an underdog story. I mean, this is their first, yeah?
It's their first since a Washington franchise in 1924. The first for the Nationals, yes.
So take me through it, because you know the story, you know the lineage, and I'm here for the hot takes and the hot tea. So
I do. It's kind of absurd that the Nationals won the World Series. This was unexpected for me. Like, the Nationals have always kind of been this bastard child who almost broke through to the next round and then never really went forward. At the beginning of the baseball season, or before the baseball season started, they let their star hitter Bryce Harper walk and get signed by the Phillies.
Right.
For 13 years, $330 million. His baseball career is going to die in Philadelphia.
Yeah, as of now, yes.
During a press conference before the season began, Harper used the phrase, quote, "We want to bring a championship to D.C." while he was in a Phillies uniform. Slip of the tongue, whatever you want to call it, LOL, awkward.
Oops.
But guess what? Bryce Harper, in his absence, brought a World Series to Washington.
How's it feel?
In the Nationals' first season without their best hitter, they win the World Series.
I wonder how that feels. To be like, I'm leading this team, and then you leave the team, and then they finally win. I would take full responsibility at that point.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would lean into that as hard as you can.
But yeah, this was my fault.
Right. I mean, good for Bryce Harper for being a good sport and, supporting his boys in DC and being like, congrats guys, all that good stuff. This whole thing should not have happened. It should not have happened.
No, that is clear. I don't even watch baseball, and when it was happening, I was like, oh.
Yeah. Can I just take you down to memory lane for a minute?
Take me down Memory Avenue, Memory Lane, Memory Street, Memory Boulevard.
All right. So, they're in the National League wildcard game, right? They're down 3-1 in the NL wildcard game to the Milwaukee Brewers. They scored 3 runs in the bottom of the 8th inning against Josh Hader, who is the reigning National League reliever of the year. So, thanks to this guy, Juan Soto, who is 20 years old and is the second coming of Christ for them. So they come from behind, win the National League wildcard game, and they advance to the NLDS. They're against the LA Dodgers, a team that many people thought would actually win the World Series this year.
I think they're slated, if I was reading an article correctly, for 2020. They're in the Astros and the Dodgers. Might have been.
Again, Jesus.
And then Nationals were third, which is rude.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. So I mean, I don't know about the Dodgers now, considering what happened to them this year. So their series is tied at 2, going to Game 5 at Dodger Stadium. In the NLDS, the Nationals are down 3-1 in the 8th inning. The Dodgers bring in Clayton Kershaw, who's their ace, to try to close it down. And we all knew that Kershaw has had some problems in the playoffs, and that the Dodgers can't really trust Kershaw in the playoffs. And that was on full display, because as soon as Kershaw came in, the Nationals hit back-to-back home runs to tie the game in the 8th inning.
They really do come in just a little bit late with just enough time. They did that in the World Series, too.
A couple of times. Yeah. Exactly right. In the 10th inning, Howie Kendrick hit a grand slam to put the series away, and the Nationals win the game 7-3 and move on to the NLCS.
I feel like the owners and Nationals are just like,
At this point, you just need to blow the whole thing up if you're the Dodgers. Fire Dave Roberts, get rid of all the pitching. Just it's over. It's over for them.
Yeah,
they need to stop with this.
Professionally, it is over for those hoes. Professionally, but I always find that in most sports, especially with baseball, it's the people are not very willing to clean house very often, especially when they're not doing well. The Phillies, and I feel like the Dodgers could use just a little bit of a spring cleaning, if you will.
Maybe so. Yeah. So the Nationals, they win the NLDS. They move on to the National League Championship Series against the St. Louis Cardinals, and they sweep them the hell out of the playoffs. 4 games in a row, Nationals win, they go to the World Series. They did not trail at all during that World Series, which is mind-boggling to me.
Oof.
This is a Braves team who, by the way, put up 10 runs in the first inning against the Atlanta Braves, who won the division that the Nationals are in Game 5 of their NLDS series, and move them out of the playoffs. And then they get swept out without even leading the series at all in any game. It's crazy.
Oh, it's so good.
Right,
It's just
though?
good TV.
It is.
It's just like good, like it's just entertaining. If you're not even like into like the mechanics of sports or like the culture of sports, you could just be in it for the good TV.
And how can you not like the Nationals?
Right.
You know?
It's like, come on. I mean, well, you know, I will say with the Nationals, like I love the underdog story. I will say that an article did come out about some political affiliations for when they visited the White House, and that has stirred up some problems. Mm-hmm. So now they're giving some people in this nation a reason not to like the Nationals. However, in terms of like a baseball organization, they're lovely.
They are. They're a new team. They're full of likable. They're full of likable talent. Full of longtime talent who has like stayed with that team.
A lot of heart too. They've always
lots of heart. Yeah. We'll get into Ryan Zimmerman in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
He's been their stronghold since he was drafted. But they're a likable team, especially in comparison to the team that they were facing in the World Series.
Right.
The Houston Astros, who, if you'll remember, had that whole deal with the assistant general manager basically taunting these female reporters in the locker room about having Roberto Osuna, a player who has, in the past, been suspended for domestic violence disputes.
Houston Astros. Astros.
Correct.
If you will.
So, if you had any kind of unbiased opinion about which team to root for during the World Series, and then all this shit about the Houston Astros drops, you find yourself cheering for the team with the most heart and the underdog in the situation.
And it's just like the Astros always win, and you're just like, no.
Exactly. They won 2 years ago, and we don't need this.
Right.
We need more. We need more diverse teams.
Right.
Winning the World Series. So they defeat the Houston Astros, a team that won 14 more games than they did during the regular season. The Astros won 107 games this past year. The Nationals only won 93. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. They became the first team ever to win all 4 games on the road. It's actually the first time in World Series history that the road team won every single game. It's crazy.
It's just like, would you say people saw a Nationals World Series coming?
No. Not at all.
At one point during...
Go ahead.
I was saying, at one point during the this season, did you think people were like, are the Nationals going to the World Series?
Not even close, especially because the Braves had more of the had more of the spotlight in that division. Like, you got to remember that the Nationals didn't win their division; they were in the wild card game. So they were in second place and ended up they were the 4th best team in the National League and ended up winning the World Series.
We stand.
So I like in the Bryce Harper era, I think most people would have thought that the Nationals would have had a better chance winning than they did without him. And I think that's what makes this story so good, is that in their first season without their top tier, their MVP player, they win the World Series. I think that's just icing on the cake.
And I think people neglect to understand that in like all sports, football, just all of it, like morale is a huge thing, and I don't know what that player is bringing to the team, but obviously, like when you have a change of personalities in a team, like it does make a difference. Like when you have a group and a unit, if you've ever played sports, if you've ever been like in a show, or if you've ever been in anything that requires like a team effort, when you have a good team morale and you have like a love for each other and a love for the game, like that's half the game. That's because all these people are obviously very talented. They're in the major leagues, so when it comes down to morale of the team, like that's what people saw from the Nationals this year. People were like, that's what people are talking about. People were like, the Nationals, yes, they look good as a team, but like they look good like as a unit, like as like a family. Like, and I think that was another reason why people love the Nationals, especially this year, because they were just such a family, and it's all what sports are about.
And it's always interesting, especially talking about morale. It's always interesting when a team loses a really important player to their team, or if they're about to. For example, like if someone's on their farewell tour or whatever. But particularly in Washington's case, where Bryce Harper leaves, they all kind of rally around the fact that like people don't believe in us without this player, and we're going to prove everybody wrong.
Yes.
And I really think that that's a major factor for the Nationals and their amazing playoff run.
I absolutely think that's so true.
If you don't mind, I just want to go real quick through this World Series
Boom.
for them. So they win all 4 games on the road. Minute Maid Park in the playoffs is very loud, and it's very difficult to win there. So the fact that they won all 4 of their games in Houston's house is crazy. So Max Scherzer, who's the Nationals' ace pitcher, he actually was scratched from Game 5 due to neck spasms. Keep in mind, the Astros had just won 2 games in Washington and had evened the series at 2-2. So, like, you want to have your best pitcher on the mound so that you have a 3-2 advantage going back to Houston, just in case you happen to drop a game there. So you only have to win 1 instead of 2. He doesn't pitch. The Astros win. They win all 3 games in Washington. They're up 3-2 going home. They need to win 1 game at home to win the World Series. The Nationals come back and win Game 6. And then in Game 7, who gets the start? Max Scherzer. He comes back like the folk hero. I'm convinced that almost like he knew that they'd win Game 6, or like either knew that they'd win Game 5 or whatever, to like come back and be the hero for them, the pitcher that they wanted in the winner-take-all game, you know? But they're down 2-0 in Game 7. Zach Greinke's pitched a gem. He gives up a home run in the 6th inning to Anthony Rendon, so it's 2-1 Astros. In the bullpen, the Astros have Garrett Cole. Garrett Cole is the league's best pitcher this year. He's probably going to win the Cy Young Award. And their manager decides not to bring in Garrett Cole for some reason to close it down. Like, it's 2-1. Okay, Greinke's getting tired. Let's bring in our best pitcher and try to shut the rest of the game down. And A.J. Hinch doesn't do that, their manager. He decides to opt for Will Harris instead. The first thing Will Harris does is give up a 2-run home run to Howie Kendrick, the guy who hit the grand slam. Nationals go up 3-2. They'd score 3 more runs in the 8th and 9th inning. They win 6-2, and they win Game 7. It's their first. It's crazy. You know, it's the first World Series win by a Washington franchise since 1924 when the Washington Senators did it.
You know, you can always remember. I remember when the Phillies won the World Series, and I remember when the Nationals won the World Series. It was like that last pitch, that last strikeout, and it's just like the running and the faces and the drop to the knees and the drama, and it's such a memorable moment of TV, and it was really nice. I was glad I was there to watch it. I mean, not in person, but I was glad I was watching TV to watch it.
Truly. The Nationals players, Steven Strasburg wins World Series MVP. He had 2 wins in the series, which is great. What I love about Strasburg is that he didn't really come into his own until like 4 years into his career. He was this really highly touted prospect when they drafted him, and he was injured for a couple of years. And, you know, people didn't really think much of him. He's like, oh man, this guy's going to be a bust. And now he's the second ace that the Nationals have. He's like a really scary pitcher now. And the fact that he won World Series MVP and just opted out of his contract, and he's going to probably be one of the highest paid pitchers in baseball next year. He's getting what he deserves. And I think we love that.
Due time.
Yeah, for real. Another person that I wanted to touch on really quick is Ryan Zimmerman. He's their first baseman. His nickname is Mr. National. He is like their long-standing guy. He's like their horse, okay? So he was the Nationals' first ever draft pick. Like when they were created as a team in 2005, he was the first player that they got. He was drafted 4th overall in 2005, 14 years ago. And he's still with the team, you know? At the grand opening of Nationals Park in 2008, he hit a walk-off home run. So the first game at Nationals Park, it was the first home run by a National in that stadium. He's responsible for the Nationals' first postseason home run in 2012. He's also responsible for the Nationals' first World Series home run this past October. And so in his 14th season, he finally has reached the top of the mountain, and he's a World Series champion.
That's so great.
How can you not be romantic about baseball?
Do you think his career may come to an end soon because of that? Or?
I would think so.
Yeah?
Probably.
I imagine.
I mean, I think he's like 35. How old is Ryan Zimmerman? As I look it up real quick. Ryan Zimmerman is 35 years old. Yeah. So I would say so. His career is probably coming to an end.
And you know what? Good career.
Yeah, for real. Just like, what a story. Like, again, it's hard not to be romantic about this sport.
It gives me faith in boys again.
It does. Do I think the Nationals are going to win the World Series next year? No, not a chance.
Yeah, I don't think so.
They may have caught lightning in a bottle, and they've got some good players. I mean, I like Juan Soto, and I like Rendon, but the Braves are a good team, and I think that they were embarrassed in the NLDS by the Cardinals, and they're going to come back stronger next year.
I agree.
The Dodgers are going to come back stronger next year. We might be looking at a resurgence in Philadelphia. Maybe they have a year to really warm up to Bryce Harper, and then they finally get things going.
Mm-hmm.
Good for the Nationals, but I don't really know if it's gonna be any more success down the line.
We love you, Nationals.
We do. That's all I've got on it. That's my trip down memory lane for the Washington Nationals.
It was a nice walk.
They win the World Series 4-3. They win their first World Series in franchise history.
How can you not stand? How can't you?
We love
It's just
Nationals,
so great.
Truly. Yeah. I'm good. You want to take a break?
I'm good.
Great. Okay, we're gonna take a quick break for you. When we come back, we're gonna wrap it up. Going to talk about some fantasy football, as we always do. I have a little bit of a bone to pick with my league, and we can talk about why you don't play fantasy football.
Not anymore, but we will pick some bones.
Great. Stick around. Be right back.